watching London Live News at 6 with me, Alicia Edwards. Coming up tonight, marking almost a year since Russia invaded Ukraine, President Zelensky has visited the capital. 12 crew members from the London Fire Brigade join the effort to support people in Turkey impacted by the devastation of the earthquake, as 77 specialists from the UK fly to help. We'll have an update on London's weather in the next 10 minutes, plus a new look for the DLR trains. We'll see the new design complete with state-of-the-art updates and real-time travel information, and the Ukrainian artists bringing their work to the capital. All of that on the way before 7 o'clock. But first this evening, as the conflict in Ukraine continues, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today made his first visit to the UK since the Russian invasion of his country began. A warm welcome at Stansted Airport. The day began with a visit to Downing Street, with Rishi Sunak promising extra military aid. Zelensky thanked the UK for its big support from the first days of full-scale invasion, while he visited Number 10 this morning. He went on to address the Houses of Parliament to rapturous applause, saying, "Thank you, Britain."
Lands which have been home to brave souls since Europe came into existence. I have come here and stand before you on behalf of the brave, on behalf of our warriors who are now in the trenches under enemy artillery fire, on behalf of our air gunners and every defender of the sky who protects Ukraine against enemy aircrafts and missiles, on behalf of our tank men who fight to restore our Ukrainian borders, on behalf of our conscripts who are being trained now, including here in Britain. Thank you, Britain.
Those pictures today from Westminster Hall. Well, he finished with "God bless Great Britain" and "Long live the King." And he also went to meet King Charles at Buckingham Palace in the 1844 room this afternoon. We see them there meeting. On some other stories from the capital today, as rescue efforts continue in Turkey and Syria. Among those joining the relief effort are 12 crew members from the London Fire Brigade, while a plane carrying 77 UK search and rescue specialists, state-of-the-art equipment and 4 search dogs were sent to help. The team will cut their way into buildings and help locate survivors in the rubble of the earthquakes. A private school where the head teacher was found dead alongside her husband and their daughter will reportedly close until after the half-term break, as police conduct a homicide investigation. Emma Pattison was found dead with her husband and their 7-year-old daughter at their home in the grounds of Epsom College on Sunday. According to the BBC, acting headmaster Paul Williams said the school will close until after the half-term break. Surrey police said Mr Pattison legally owned a gun that was discovered at the scene of the tragedy. Protesters have called on the Church of England to stop discriminating against gay people, calling the offer of prayers of blessing for same-sex couples an insult and not sufficient. Campaigner Peter Tatchell joined demonstrators today. While the blessings have been welcomed by some, others have said they do not go far enough.
Protest never stops, and the organising of people to engage with the church, to try and persuade them that change is essential. That's never ever going to stop until the day when real equality is achieved. And in fact, there are now a number of groups working very closely together to achieve change in a way that's never happened before. And certainly the pressure is not going to be let off in the coming years.
The bishop's apology is worthless while it continues to discriminate by denying same-sex couples the right to marry the person they love. This right exists for every heterosexual man and woman in Britain, but not for lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people. It defies the principles and spirit of the Equality Act. It's discrimination, and discrimination is not a Christian value.
Now, 5 people have been arrested after a teenage girl was injured in a violent altercation near a school. The police are asking for people not to share the incident on social media. London Live's Hebe Campbell has more.
A video of the fight surfaced on social media and shows a 39-year-old egging on the children as well as beating up the girl herself, with a large crowd of people, all of whom are white, watching the girl being violently beaten between Salcombe Road and Stanwell Road in Ashford. A passerby is also seen stopping in a car and watching until teachers, including the head teacher, casually broke up the fight. A Change.org petition has attracted hundreds of signatures and is understood that many people have called the college to complain, with locals criticising the head teacher of the school for his actions on the scene. The victim has had their physical welfare confirmed, luckily, and Ashford police have launched an investigation. They've also confirmed that they've arrested a 39-year-old woman, a 16-year-old girl, an 11-year-old girl, a 10-year-old girl, and a 43-year-old man. Police are still looking, however, to arrest a 6th suspect, a 15-year-old girl. She knows she's wanted in connection with the incident, and they've encouraged her to hand herself in to the nearest police station. Police have also urged people not to share the harrowing video online, but have urged anyone with evidence to submit it to them on their website so that it can be considered as evidence in this investigation.
London Live's Hebe Campbell reporting there. Now, the Environment Agency staff have been protesting as part of an ongoing dispute over pay. Members of Unison and Prospect walked out today and joined picket lines due to experiencing real terms pay cuts and claims of a lack of staff.
Faced a 20% real terms pay cut over the last 10 years. The civil service pay system, particularly for professionals like this, is broken beyond repair. They're paid more than compatible jobs in the private sector. And this all crashed into the cost of living crisis in 2022 and into 2023. And that's why members are taking the action they are today.
The Environment Agency has been carrying a number of vacancies, around 10% over the last year. And we have asked the Environment Agency if they could use some of that unspent money to make a one-off payment in-year award to help with the cost of living crisis that we have. Unfortunately, pay remit won't allow for that to happen. So while we negotiate with the Environment Agency, we also know that their hands are tied by government. So we need the government to enable the Environment Agency to have the powers with the money that it has to use it as it sees fit.
Well, DEFRA responded to the action, saying as a public sector organisation, the Environment Agency remains bound by the pay policy of the government of the day, adding they have plans to minimise disruption to their essential work to protect the environment and respond to critical incidents. Now, after a fatal gas explosion in South London in August last year, more than 500 people were evacuated from their homes after the incident. One man who risked his life to rescue children is still living in a hotel 6 months on. 63-year-old Delroy Sims and his family are one of 29 households still living in temporary accommodation. Merton Council has said it is working closely with every family to help them into long-term accommodation. The first in a new fleet of DLR trains has been unveiled, with air conditioning, walk-through carriages and even USB charging points. The new look turquoise painted trains feature real-time travel information displays and will be in service starting next year. They'll also have extra space for wheelchairs, prams and bikes, and their seats will be covered in a new moquette fabric which is called Poplar. Now, aside from meeting President Zelensky, as we showed you earlier in the programme, the King today visited the University of East London's Stratford campus to celebrate its 125th anniversary. Meeting people of all ages on his visit, he also opened a new medical hub which will train people in health and social care. Right, it's time for a quick look at the weather now. It stays chilly this evening, just above freezing overnight. Sunny intervals continue for the rest of the week with highs of around 9 degrees. And we can look forward to finally seeing double digits over the weekend and into next week, with some patchy sunshine breaking through the clouds. Right, it's time for a quick break now, but don't go anywhere, because coming up, as rent and bills rise, is London affordable for students? More on the way in the next 10 minutes.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello there, welcome back. Time now for a look at some other stories affecting Londoners. Fast food chain McDonald's has signed a legal agreement with the equality watchdog after concerns were raised over how it has handled sexual harassment complaints made by staff in the UK. It comes after allegations by workers at US restaurants and the company's failure to deal with the issue. The chief executive of the chain in the UK said that harassment and abuse have no place in our society or at their restaurants. Better protections are needed for renters who own pets, according to animal charities. The Dogs Trust has said it's been receiving a record number of inquiries from people forced to rehome their pets. Meanwhile, Cats Protection said that in the last year it took around 1,300 cats, which is the equivalent to around 3 every day, because of landlords not allowing them in their properties. And the image of the King, which will feature on first and second class stamps, has been revealed. It shows a simple image of the monarch without a crown. A Royal Mail executive described the picture as a defining part of his reign. The stamps will go on sale from the 4th of April, but people can now register their interest on the Royal Mail's website. Now, new research has revealed that 2/3 of parents have been concerned by online content viewed by their child, and most aren't confident with the safety. To head to the final stages soon is a commitment to make the internet a safer place, and could see tech companies receiving fines for leaving certain content on their platforms. Well, campaigner Emma Robertson has been sharing her top tips on how parents can keep their children safe.
The research has found that 2/3 of parents are concerned by the content their child is seeing online, and this really mirrors the conversations that we're having with parents in schools, where they're really feeling completely out of control, on the back foot when it comes to what their children are seeing online, whether it's violent videos or inappropriate people. The research has also found that 12 is the age at which parents feel like their children's digital knowledge overtakes their own. And this is really worrying, because 12 is just such a young age for parents to already start feeling like they're not confident having conversations with their children about the sorts of things that they could be, how they can protect themselves online. And then another statistic that's come through, only 1 in 10 parents feel confident with the safety features that they can activate to keep their children safe online. And parental controls and safety settings can be a real minefield for parents. There are numerous safety settings and parental controls available out there that parents can use to kind of keep their children safe by managing the sorts of things that they can see and do when they're using tech. So in addition to having healthy and balanced conversations with their kids about their digital lives, it's really important to know how to activate these controls as well.
So the list of concerns that a parent can have when their child is using the internet daily, hourly, you could come across disinformation and learning to check your source of information, hate speech, and the list could really go on. Do you think that there is a way around these issues, a way of navigating these issues from a parent's perspective?
Big advice, the key pieces of advice that I would have is for parents to really get to know the tech. So have a play with the apps and games and devices that their children are using, do research, learn about them, try and understand what the risks could look like, what the benefits could look like. Today we've partnered with Vodafone to launch Digital Parenting Pro, and this resource contains all of that information, as well as advice from us and the NSPCC on how parents can activate parental controls and safety settings across the most popular apps, games and devices. I would also say that making sure parents are really aware of the age restrictions. So for example, on games, you've got PEGI age ratings. There's misinformation, disinformation. The amount of harms that our young people and we ourselves actually are coming across. What's really, really important is that we are having regular, ongoing, everyday conversations with our young children about the sorts of experiences that they're having, and actually talking a little bit about the sorts of experiences that we ourselves are having. Like, reach for those teachable moments. If you've got some DPD scam on your device, use that. Go and talk to your child about it. Say, can we spot this scam together? Why do we think that could be misinformation?
You mentioned that it's really important for parents to kind of have an open discussion about these kind of harms, such as disinformation and stuff. Some parents don't have the experience or the knowledge of technology to know this. Now, do you think that media literacy should be taught to children, how to navigate the internet safely, now that the internet has taken over so much more than previous times. The online safety bill was written, the one that is currently in place, almost before social media began. Do you think media literacy needs to be taught in schools from a young age?
Absolutely, that has to be key, and there's always going to need to be more education given in schools. But to your point about parents perhaps not feeling like they know enough to be able to provide the amount of support that's needed, what I would say to them is that actually you can strip the tech out of a lot of these conversations. There are things like scams and misinformation and hacking, very technical stuff, which is going to intrinsically be linked to the digital space. But a lot of what we're dealing with in schools is linked to children feeling left out, children experiencing racism or homophobia or being bullied, or just not knowing how to navigate life. These are big, these challenges have been going on since the dawn of day. And actually, whilst most parents won't have grown up with Snapchat and TikTok like they have, we know what it feels like to be bullied at school. We can probably give quite helpful advice to our children on how to manage bullying, even though it may not have happened online. So I think whilst we may feel like we're on the back foot, sometimes we have brilliant life experience and advice that we can share based on all of that experience.
There we are, campaigner Emma Robertson there with her advice on how you can keep children safe online. Now, with London students paying an average £663 per month for rent, 72% of those studying in the capital who pay their own bills say they struggle with the payments at least some of the time, with the number of London students living with family while they study increasing to nearly a third from 18% in previous years. Tom Allingham from Save the Student is here to talk us through the findings. Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. Can you just tell me a little bit more about these findings and what it says about students here in the capital?
Yes, so we surveyed over 1,800 students nationwide, including a significant portion in London. And what we found is that, perhaps not a surprise, is that the cost of rent, the cost of bills as well in London are significantly higher than anywhere else in the country. Rent in London is by far the highest across the UK. So what we've seen, as we've seen across a number of other studies as well, is that people in London, and in this case students, are struggling with the cost of living to a greater degree than people elsewhere in the country.
Obviously, many students have student loans. How far do they go in the capital? What do they actually pay for?
The short and unfortunately quite sad answer is student loans are not enough. So we found from previous studies as well that the loan quite often doesn't cover rent, even just rent. So, you have bills, you have food, you have travel, all these other costs on top of it to cover. And the fact of the matter is that the maintenance loan does not cover even just rent in a lot of cases.
So for most students, how are they getting by, particularly here in London?
So there are a number of different things. Obviously, one of the most common ways is for students to get a part-time job, but for a lot of students, that's simply not an option, whether that be due to time constraints or just the lack of jobs available. Lots of students will also kind of turn to parental contributions as well, but particularly during the cost of living crisis, and again, it's affecting people in London to a greater degree than elsewhere in the country. Families are just less able to support students than they have previously been. So students are needing help more than ever at the exact time that their families are less able to help them.
We're also seeing an increased number of students choosing to live with family members, be that staying in the family home or family members who live in London. Is that something you think that's going to continue to increase?
Yeah, absolutely. So you already touched upon the stat there that 28% of students in London now live with their parents or guardians. That's up from 18% last year. And it's a trend we've been seeing a little bit more over time, but particularly in the last year, that has jumped hugely. And I would not be surprised to see it more often, given the cost of renting.
Yeah, I've got my younger sister moving in shortly. What can be done? Unis need the students want to be educated in a capital city like London. How can this be sorted?
I think first and foremost, the government needs to increase the level of support that it's offering students. So by virtue of being full-time students, most of students have been ineligible for most of the government's cost of living support packages. The only one that was accessible was the £400 energy grant, which we also found that a number of students have found completely inaccessible. So the government needs to factor students into any current and future energy bill support. We also need to see the rate of maintenance loans increase because, as we've seen, they simply do not cover basic expenses.
And in terms of students' living situations, obviously wanting to come to London and experience everything that London has to offer, many are having to live quite a long way away from their universities, aren't they?
As a former London student myself, I was born and raised in London and went to university in London. It is a great opportunity. It's a great place to study. But yeah, if you don't have the luxury of having parents who live in London or the availability of accommodation near your university, then it can be quite a tricky situation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tom, for taking the time to chat.
Thanks very much.
There we are, Tom there from Save the Student. You're watching London Live News with Alicia Edwards. A reminder of our top story coming up after the break, plus a look at the world of London finance in the noughties. We'll hear more about a tell-all book uncovering the secrets of the city.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello there, welcome back. Time now for a reminder of our main story this evening. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today made his first visit to the UK since the Russian invasion of his country. A warm welcome at Stansted Airport. The day began with a visit to Downing Street with Rishi Sunak promising extra military aid. Zelensky thanked the UK for its big support from the first days of full-scale invasion while he visited Number 10 this morning. He went on to address the Houses of Parliament to rapturous applause, saying, "Thank you, Britain."
Lands which have been home to brave souls since Europe came into existence. I have come here and stand before you on behalf of the brave, on behalf of our warriors who are now in the trenches under enemy artillery fire, on behalf of our air gunners and every defender of the sky who protects Ukraine against enemy aircrafts and missiles, on behalf of our tank men who fight to restore our Ukrainian borders, on behalf of our conscripts who are being trained now, including here in Britain. Thank you, Britain.
Those pictures today from Westminster Hall. Well, he finished with "God bless Great Britain and long live the King." And he also went to meet King Charles at Buckingham Palace in the 1844 room this afternoon. We see them there meeting. On some other stories from the capital today, as rescue efforts continue in Turkey and Syria. Among those joining the relief effort are 12 crew members from the London Fire Brigade, while a plane carrying 77 UK search and rescue specialists, state-of-the-art equipment and 4 search dogs were sent to help. The team will cut their way into buildings and help locate survivors in the rubble of the earthquakes. A private school where the head teacher was found dead alongside her husband and their daughter will reportedly close until after the half-term break as police conduct a homicide investigation. Emma Pattison was found dead with her husband and their 7-year-old daughter at their home in the grounds of Epsom College on Sunday. According to the BBC, acting headmaster Paul Williams said the school will close until after the half-term break. Surrey police said Mr Pattison legally owned a gun that was discovered at the scene of the tragedy. Protesters have called on the Church of England to stop discriminating against gay people, calling the offer of prayers of blessing for same-sex couples an insult and not sufficient. Campaigner Peter Tatchell joined demonstrators today. While the blessings have been welcomed by some, others have said they do not go far enough.
Protest never stops, and the organising of people to engage with the church, to try and persuade them that change is essential. That's never ever going to stop until the day when real equality is achieved. And in fact, there are now a number of groups working very closely together to achieve change in a way that's never happened before. And certainly the pressure is not going to be let off in the coming years.
The bishop's apology is worthless while it continues to discriminate by denying same-sex couples the right to marry the person they love. This right exists for every heterosexual man and woman in Britain, but not for lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people. It defies the principles and spirit of the Equality Act. It's discrimination, and discrimination is not a Christian value.
Now, the Environment Agency staff have been protesting as part of an ongoing dispute over pay. Members of Unison and Prospect walked out today and joined picket lines due to experiencing real terms pay cuts and claims of a lack of staff.
Our members have faced the real terms pay cut over the last 10 years or so. It's the first time we've balloted our members nationally in over a decade, and it reflects that measured professionals who are committed to the Environment Agency and the civil service generally have decided enough is enough, and they have to make the protest in the face of the government's intransigence. We want last year to be addressed. That hasn't gone away despite their efforts to say that it has. And then in 23-24 we need a process on pay that's going to reflect the fact that They need to recruit and retain these sort of skills, these sort of people, and they won't be able to do it unless there's more money in the pot.
The Environment Agency has been carrying a number of vacancies, around 10% over the last year, and we have asked the Environment Agency if they could use some of that unspent money to make a one-off payment in-year award to help with the cost of living crisis that we have. Unfortunately, Pay Remit won't allow for that to happen. So while we negotiate with the Environment Agency, we also know that their hands are tied by government. So we need the government to enable the Environment Agency to have the powers with the money that it has to use it as it sees fit.
Now, whether you like it or not, the high-stakes world of finance is very much tied to the capital, and the industry has changed a lot since the early years, with smaller firms slowly swallowed up by huge corporations. Well, one of the last bastions of the old city was Cazenove, a prestigious stockbroking firm who were bought out by JP Morgan in the noughties. Well, former CEO Robert Pickering has penned a new book on his time at the company and the changes he saw. It's called Blue Blood. He's been telling Paul exactly what this means.
Well, in the context of Cazenove, essentially, it really refers to the fact that whenever Cazenove was spoken about or written about, certainly in the 80s and into the 90s, it was always referred to as blue-blooded Cazenove. And it really alluded to the fact that historically the firm had this sort of quite upper crust image. And I talk in the book about the fact that when I first joined the firm in 1985, I think half the partners were Old Etonians. I wasn't an Old Etonian, or I'm not an Old Etonian, I should hasten to add. And in a sense, the book's really about the way the firm transitioned from being this, quite narrowly focused, family-oriented private business into a modern investment bank, and then subsequently went into partnership with JP Morgan, which is obviously a massive global financial juggernaut.
How did you first get started in finance, Robert? I mean, at Cazenove, and then how did your career progress there as time went on?
I was born here, went to school here, qualified as a solicitor, but I was never really particularly intending to have a long-term career in the law. I always saw myself moving into the city. It was a time of Big Bang. There was a lot of excitement about the Big Bang reforms in the city, and I was always interested in markets. And I was attracted to Cazenove partly because it was it was the premier name in corporate broking at the time, and they were the only firm that had decided not to sell themselves to a big international bank at the time of Big Bang. So there was still the prospect there of joining the partnership. So I went in as a corporate finance executive in the spring of 1985. I spent a couple of years in New York. If you like, my route to the top, if I can put it that way, was really arguing that we should move away from being a pure corporate stockbroking firm to something which looked more like a modern investment bank.
I just want to go back to a point you've mentioned there about the Big Bang in the mid-80s. Some of our viewers who might not know what that was about, can you just sort of briefly summarise the main changes that happened with the deregulation of the city at that time?
At its briefest, essentially what happened was that before 1986, the city was very much a closed shop. If you bought or sold shares, commissions were fixed. You couldn't negotiate different commission rates, and nobody was allowed to own a stock exchange member firm apart from the partners. And what Big Bang did, because the government essentially said this is anti-competitive and we need to change it, well, the two main things was it did away with fixed commissions, so commissions could be negotiated. It also allowed external capital into the stock market. And so basically what happened is all the stockbroking firms, which had previously been private partnerships, with the exception of Cazenove, sold themselves to banks, made some domestic banks like Barclays or NatWest, and some international banks. And the idea was to form these big financial supermarkets, which are supposed to take over the world and drive out any remaining independence, like Cazenove. It didn't work out quite like that, but that was the theory.
Robert, what inspired you to adapt your time at Cazenove into a book, and why should people who are in the finance world pick it up?
Well, it was something I had meant to do for quite a long time. I actually left the firm in 2008. I didn't do it immediately for two reasons. Partly just life got in the way. I was, working. I got married again. I had more children. So, I had things going on in my life. And, but also, it was all, some of the experience, particularly at the end with JP Morgan, was quite bruising, and the whole thing was a bit raw. So I didn't really feel like setting it down at that point. And then, for no particularly good reason, I decided in 2021 that I wanted to write it down. And, well, I think the answer to your second question is, I think it's, for a certain type of person who's interested in that kind of thing, I think it's quite an interesting story in itself. Cazenove was an unusual business. It held quite a fascination for a lot of people who are interested in city-type matters. But also, I think there are lessons which are of general application. You know, how you take a private family firm and the kind of processes that you have to put in place to enable it really to grow to the next level of its development.
For people who are outside of the finance world, like myself and many of the viewers, what kind of things can we take from your book? What kind of lessons can we learn from it?
One of the things I've tried to do is I've tried to make the language accessible, so not use a lot of technical language, to try to describe in simple terms what it was that we did and what other firms in the city did. There's quite a lot of pen portraits of people I met that people will have heard of. If they have even a passing interest in the city, people like, I don't know, Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan or, Bob Diamond of Barclays and many others. So, I'm hoping that even if you're not really focused on the nitty-gritty of the financial world, that there's stuff in there that you might find interesting or amusing.
There we are, and Robert's book, Blue Blood, is out on the 22nd of February. It's time for a quick break now, but don't go anywhere, because coming up, the new movie starring Claire Foy and Jessie Buckley gets an Oscar nod. We'll hear more from the stars.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
welcome back. You're watching London Live News at 6. Now, when Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine nearly a year ago, the Kyiv-based hooligan art community was split up and displaced. Some fled the war, others stayed behind in bunkers. Now, a year on, with the conflict still going on, these creatives have managed to come together for a performance in the capital that will mark the anniversary. Well, Paul's been speaking to Mira and Danilo from the group. They say it's vital that people keep talking about Ukraine.
Was founded in Kyiv in 2019, and we are like international company because our members like it's Ukrainian artists, British and German artists, and we like making show site specific device theater show from since 2019. Like 16, yeah, but then officially we found company like only 3 years ago, and we before made project in Berlin and London, and now we are with our show Bunker Cabaret in London again, and Bunker Cabaret show is which started in Kyiv.
We created it in bomb shelter of Kyiv, so it's like a show of dance and songs and drama. So we are coming back to London to show this performance.
What were those early days like after the invasion on a personal level for both yourself, Mira, and Danilo as well? You know, you would have known there was some tension between the two nations beforehand, but did you kind of expect that sudden sort of upheaval in your lives?
I expect this 1 month before. I got feeling and I like started prepare to this invasion. Like, of course, I cannot expect and cannot know it 100%, but I make some preparation. I bought some things at house, some petrol, some like things which I need, and with things could be crisis if. So, but how you, Mira?
For me it was not like I knew that it could be, but like of course I didn't believe at that moment when it was happened. So what can I say? This is war. It shouldn't happen at all.
But your art community was separated and split up. I mean, some of you fled. You guys are in Germany, is that right?
Yeah, like now our company, our hooligan community company is displaced. We was based all in Kyiv, somebody from Kyiv, from Kharkiv, different city, but now we're displaced. Like somebody stay in Berlin, in Germany, somebody in Sweden, somebody in London, somebody. But now with our show in tour, and we kind of like don't have somebody tricky feeling of this home, because like we're on tour with our show and we just travel and showing our show to as much as possible in UK and Germany, and sharing this show with people, because we want it's important to us to share, because it's like we know it's a war. It's already 1 year, and everything people who not in Ukraine can watch on the TV. And this is kind of, we understand that when we play our show, it's important contact.
Just a conversation with people, with human, real conversation.
So obviously, a lot of this show will be about, the experience of the last year, and how that's been, such a devastating experience. But are there also perhaps some lighter moments, some kind of celebrations, if you will, of, Ukrainian culture?
It's all about celebration of life, and we always. Господи, намагаємось. Trying. We always trying to find the ray of light, even in this dark topic and dark, horrid reflections which we already have because of this situation and this war. Of course, we have an inner war inside of us, but what we are doing at this stage, like we are speaking about love and about what have we got that makes us alive. anyway.
Yeah, and our story we share and show our story or like feelings and scenes in show. It's like about, of course, us and war and our reflection, but it's like in war, like it's still on war. It's a lot of humor and a lot of life. It's not only depressive and it's not only dark side, and it's like it's a mix of everything. It's like, and in show, I think very successfully, very successfully try to do it.
There we are, and you can catch Hooligans show Bunker Cabaret at Somerset House on the 24th or the 25th of the month. Onto a movie now starring Jessie Buckley and Claire Foy. New film Women Talking follows a group of women in a religious colony who attempt to bring light a series of sexual assaults. Inspired by real-life events in Bolivia, the Oscar-nominated film also stars Rooney Mara, Ben Whishaw and Frances McDormand. Well, we'll hear from the cast in a moment, but first let's take a quick look at a clip of the film.
Come out of your homes to be counted for the 2010 census.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this film really doesn't dwell in the realm of the horror of what's happened to these women. It really takes on what a way forward might look like and how they're building together as a community and sitting with each other's experiences and trying to build a new world. And so to me, it felt like, besides the point to see the details of the horror that they've experienced, it's certainly part of the film in terms of what's discussed, but it didn't feel relevant or important to actually show the attacks.
Everyone from Kate and Liv to Sheila and Judith, who, the sort of range of experiences and personalities, everyone's very different.
Yeah.
But yeah, to see everybody working together and delighting in each other's company and in each other's work was really very beautiful.
It was amazing. It was just an amazing group of actors, not just because they're brilliant, but because they were so wonderful with each other and created such a sense of community and fun and collaboration. And I mean, it was really idyllic in a way that, you often hear people talk about, but we really mean it. Yeah, I mean, to me, the book by Miriam Toews, when I read it, felt very timeless and really essential, sadly, at any moment in history. I think there has been a lot of conversation over the last few years, more so about gender-based violence, and those have been really important conversations. And a lot of that has been about identifying harm. And I think what I was so excited about was the opportunity to tell this story, which was about a way forward and about what we want to build, not just what we want to destroy.
I don't think they're that different from our lives. They probably have a more concentrated relationship to faith or a particular kind of relationship to God. But, we all live with like a kind of some sort of faith in whatever that form takes in our lives. And yeah, I related a lot to them. They didn't feel foreign. Like, what felt foreign was that this story was actually being told. And what was kind of so exciting about it was actually being able to talk these things out loud for the first time, when actually we've had them all privately in our minds and even communally. Like, you never have an opportunity to have a conversation like this with a group of women.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing, is I feel like it's interesting, the concept that this isn't more real than the world we live in. I think that a lot of people who move through the world, not just women, but this is their reality. And I think the more we address that, the less we keep that some sort of fringe aspect of society, the more healthy society hopefully will be. Because I think that the most common experiences and the things that people go through in their lives are what these women are experiencing. It's been put out there and they're talking about it.
How would you feel if in your entire life it never mattered what you thought? When we've liberated ourselves, we will have to ask ourselves who we are.
There we go, some of the cast there, and Women Talking is out on Friday. Time for a final check on the weather before we leave you. It stays chilly this evening, just above freezing overnight. Sunny intervals continue for the rest of the week with highs of around 9 degrees, and we can look forward to double digits over the weekend and into next week with patchy sunshine breaking through the clouds. And that's all we've got time for this evening. Thank you for watching. Do make sure you follow us over on our social channels for updates throughout the day. We're in all the usual places at London Live. But from all of us here, have a lovely evening.